Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Contribution to Open Source. And in this video today, we will be contributing to a library in Python called Pandas. So Pandas is a very powerful Python module that helps you with data analysis and data manipulation. A bit of a history. Pandas, the main goal was to include the data frame support that was natively there in the programming language called R into Python. And so a lot of the Pandas code is inspired by the data frame object in R. And one of the results is that Pandas, as we know, is a column major data analysis tool. If you don't know what column major is, feel free to just look it up, but it's not relevant to this particular video. This was just a very brief introduction of what Pandas as a Python module does. So for this particular video, we will be following our step-by-step contribution guide, which you can see in the screen right here. This is a 13-step contribution guide, which we have covered in one of the videos over here. So if you have not watched it, feel free to do so. And in this 13-step contribution guide, the first step is finding a project. Fortunately, for most of our videos in this guide, we already have a project, in this case, the Pandas dev project. The next step is to read the contribution.md and the readme.md. So let's go ahead and do that. So the readme has quite a bit of content. It shows like the main features, how we can install Pandas, the dependencies that we will need, how the installation works, the license it follows, so and so. The most important part when you're contributing to this library is to go to the dependencies sections. So we understand that it needs something called Cython. It needs, we need to install the pandas directory locally. And they also have a command right here, which we can use for installing it in development mode. And this is what we will be doing today, because we will be editing some code in pandas library and fixing a bug. And for this, we will need to install it in the development mode. Next up, the dependencies over here, which we will need in our virtual environment, and we'll go to that when the time comes. We'll need NumPy, which is a numerical library, numerical manipulation library in Python. We will also need Python dateutil and pytz. So these are all the dependencies which we will install before we start running the final development mode installation command. So in this case, the contribution.md is not really a markdown file in the repository. Rather, you'll have to scroll down to the end of the README section, and you'll have a contributing to pandas section, where you'll have the access to the contribution guide or the contributing guide. So we go and open that up. So in the contributing guide, there are some guidelines that we should be following, for example, for submitting a pull request, for finding an issue, bug reports, etc. In this particular video, we are actually going to submit a pull request. So the section most relevant to us is the one right here. But if you're opening a bug, or if you're finding an issue to contribute to, you can also refer to these sections right here. So let's go to version control. It gives you an idea about how you can fork a repo, how you can clone this locally and work on it. We'll be going through all these steps in great detail because we will have to follow them when we are contributing. There's also a very good idea of creating another branch to work in. That's what we always do when we contribute to open source projects. How to make code changes, how to add it, push, create a pull request, so on and so forth. So this is the same workflow that we will be using, more or less the same workflow that we will be using when we follow a 13-step contribution guide. So we have gone through the contribution.md, in this case, the contributing guide, and readme.md. Now we look for some relevant issues. Fortunately, for this video, we already have a relevant issue. So the issue that we will tackle today, or the bug that we will tackle today, is bug number 58977. And let's understand what this bug actually means. The user reports that when they try to import pandas as PD, and they create two different series. So we have series 1, which has none, none, none under the columns A, B, and C, and series 2, which also has 3 values of none under the index or column names of B, C, and D. Now, when they use this particular command called combine first, such that they call this method on the S1 object and pass S2 as a parameter, and they try to print the result, they get something unexpected. So what they get right now is nan followed by none, none, and none. Let's understand what this thing is. So the behavior of combine first is that for the indices that matches between the two series, whatever value is present in series 2 gets copied onto the values of series 1. Now, since both the series have none as their values, and over here, if you look closely, S1 series and S2 series have two indices in common, which is index B and index C. So what should ideally happen is that the values of B and C should be copy pasted to the values of B and C in S1, and since they are already none, there should be no change. In other words, this new result should have all the four indices A, B, C, and D. Again, if there's an index missing in S1, that does get copied, so that's why we also get the index D. But all of these values should be none because the initial values were none. You'll copy it and it'll still remain none, and that's what the function is supposed to do. However, the function gives us nan for the value of A, and that is the bug that we are trying to fix over here. The user also gives us the expected output, and as usual, having some code that can be reproduced is very essential when you're tackling a bug fix. So the next step is forking and cloning the repository. To start with forking a repository, we go in the code tab. And on your top right, you should have a button called fork. Click on the arrow beside it, and you should be able to create a new fork. In my case, I already have an existing fork, so I can just go to that. Once you go into your existing fork, you can click on the button beside code, and that will give you a URL or an HTTPS URL, which you can simply copy up here. Now let's go ahead and start developing. To start developing, we first need to make a development environment. So let's go to a folder where you would like to start working on. We create a new folder just for simplicity, and let me call this demo. Once we're in the demo folder, we create a new git bash, and this git bash will help us to clone the repository within this particular folder. So over here, all we need to do is let's check our current directory. We are within demo, so we can just do a git clone. And to make it more legible, let me increase the size. And the URL that we just copied, we can paste it over here. Now, while this takes place, we also need an additional thing. And if you have seen my previous videos, you know what that is. If you have not, no worries. We will need to create a new virtual environment. So to create a new virtual environment, in this particular video and in this series in general, I will be using the Windows subsystem for Linux, which is the Linux wrapper on top of the Windows file system. And the detailed instructions on how you can install this in Windows will be linked in the description below. So with this Windows subsystem for Linux, we'll first create a virtual environment. And the command to do that is python 3 -n v env, and I'll just call this environment env. You can call it anything you want. Once the environment is created, we activate the environment using the command source bin activate. Once we have activated the environment, now we go back to our git bash terminal, and once we have completed the cloning process, the next step is to create a new branch. And how do we know that? We know that because our contribution guide says that once we fork and clone it, we create a new branch. However, because this is a clone of my own fork of my Pandas repository, I already have a branch that has a fix installed for it. So what I'll do right now is I'll go to this Pandas repository, so you can cd into the repository. And over here, I will be using the command git branch -a to get an understanding of which all branches I've labeled. And there is a branch over here which has combine first none error, and that is the branch I do want to go to. So I'll do a git fetch origin. I'll just fetch all the branches that are out there, and then I will check out the branch called combine first none error. All right, so once we have switched to the new branch, the next step is to set up the virtual environment. Fortunately, we have already created the virtual environment right here. However, we still don't have all the dependencies. So we go back to our pandas repository, and we go down to all the different dependencies we need. So the first thing is numpy. So let's go over here and do pip install numpy. Once NumPy has been installed, we can install the other dependencies. So let's go back to the Pandas website, and the other two are Python dateutil and pytz. To install both of these dependencies at once, what you could do is combine them in a single statement. So Python dateutil space pytz. Once these packages have been installed, we are done with installing the dependencies over here. However, we still need to follow the installation instructions. So the first thing is pip install Cython. So let me go and paste that up. After Cython has been successfully installed, the next step is to install the pandas directory in the development mode. And for this, the command is right here. So we copy this command, we go back to our WSL terminal, and we paste this right here. All right, so when we did paste the command, we got a roadblock. And this is something you would usually encounter if you're working on major projects, because building it locally is not as easy as it sounds. There are quite a few things that might error out and you need to debug them on the fly. So let's do this. It's a great exercise. Let me scroll up a bit so that my video does not hide any of the text over here. So when we run this command, we get something called no such option config settings. But it's important to understand what are we exactly doing. So we are having the Python executable run the pip command. So pip is one of the softwares we use for installing packages. We use the install command in pip, and it has a few arguments called no build isolation and some of the conf settings. So what we need to do right now is that it says there's no such option. And it usually happens, now again, this is more of a debugging and detective skill, that the option is not present, which means that probably this option was added later on and we don't have the correct version of it. This could be a case, right? So the first thing I would try is to change the version of pip I'm using. So let me clear my screen right now. So we have a bit more real estate. So in order to update pip, the command we will be using, or you should be using, is python -m pip install upgrade pip. So let's just run this. After upgrading the version of pip, let us try again if this helps us to solve the error. Okay, so we got an error saying that this does not appear to be a Python project, which is absolutely true because we are not within the Pandas repository. So that was a silly mistake on our end. We go into the Pandas repository and run this again. However, this does give us an indication that probably our error has been solved because we no longer get the same error message or information saying that config settings is not available. Okay, so we have hit another error saying no module named mesonpy. This is usually the place you should go for getting the pip install command. This is the PyPy project, so we can copy paste this command. We can go back to our bash, and let me paste it over here. Copy, paste. Once we have that, we will resume our process of installing it locally. So let's rerun this command. Okay, so we have hit another issue, and let's try to debug this together. So cbill for output exit code 1, the error originates from a subprocess. Okay. All right, preparing metadata, error encountered. This is an issue, see above for details. Now the first thing I would look for if there is a log present, and let me see if they have any information about where I can find a log. Okay, so it doesn't seem to have a log, however, it does have an error saying Meson Python error could not find Ninja version 1.8.2 or nearer. So let me copy this error and paste it in our very trustworthy search engines. All right, so we do have a command over here which we can try it out, and let's see if that solves the issue. I'll be using pip because that's what we have been using instead of pip3. All right, now we can see that the version is 1.11, so this error should ideally be solved. Let me clear and get some more real estate and rerun the command for installation. Okay, so we have hit another roadblock. However, fortunately over here, it says a full log can be found over here, so we'll check that out very soon. Let's see if we have any other error that is being generated. It does say that the preparing editable metadata was successful, so previous error has been solved. All right, let's go and search for the logs that they're talking about. So the error over here says that user bin environment Python 3 are no such file or directory. And what we should do is when we don't understand an error, Google it, right? I've already Googled it and I've had this page open where we have a potential solution. And they tell us that we need to use this DOS to Unix command in order to convert our Windows file ending to a Linux file ending. And what seems to be the case over here is that the generate version.py seems to have the wrong file endings. So let us get the DOS to Unix over here. So let me paste the command. We enter our password for sudo. So once it has been installed, we reopen the log to understand which file is creating the error. So it is the generate version.py. And over here, let us see if we have the file available. So generate version.py. We do have it. And the solution tells us that we should use DOS to Unix and the file name. So let's just do that. DOS to Unix, followed by the file name. Okay, now since we have used the command to change the file endings, we go back to run our installation command. Here we go again. So we have hit another error. Unfortunately, we still have the log. So let us go to the log and see if we have a different error. And we absolutely do. So no module named version here. Again, you need to be good at Googling things. So the best way to solve a no module error in Python is to write the name of the module and pypi. And go to the first link and you should have a command over here which will help you. So we go back. Let me clear the screen again so you can see it. And we install version here. After installing version here, we run the command again, and let's see if we face a different error, or this time we are lucky enough to get it installed. Okay, so this time it seems that we have successfully installed the Pandas package locally. However, we still need to test it out. So in order to test it out, let us create a file. Let's go one step behind. Let's create a file called test.py. And what we will do is we'll go back to the issue that we have been solving and we'll try to reproduce it. All right, so the code we need to reproduce this issue is right here. So we now go in this new file called test.py. And what we will do is we'll paste the code that we have. So let me go back, copy that, paste it. All right, so ideally, when we run this, we should be able to reproduce the error. So let me just do a Python test.py and let's see what we get. All right, so let me scroll a bit up so that you can see the outputs clearly. We do get a nan followed by none, none, none. And this was the expected output without the fix. So definitely we are able to reproduce it. Now the fix for this issue is actually simple, right? You need to understand how the Pandas library actually works and what is the difference between none and nan in Pandas. If you want to understand the details behind my fix, you can always go to my pull request, and I'll link the number of my pull request in the description below, and you can see some of the conversation that has taken place within the pull request and also under the issue. Under the issue, I've given a detailed description of why my code is solving the fix and how we can tackle it in the most efficient manner. So the fix for this is, let me just go to the files change to show you what's going on right now. So the simple fix that we do is that within this command, we changed all the none values to nan values. And that helps us to have some consistency. And the reason why we do that is actually in the documentation of Pandas and how Pandas was built and the conventions that it follows. So again, as I said, if you are more interested in this, you can definitely go to the issue and read the discussion. However, it is not the point of the video to tackle this particular bug. The point of the video is to understand that the build process can be a bit cumbersome. As you see, we have gone through a number of different errors in order to build it successfully. And once you have reach the stage. You can tackle any issue as long as you know how to write basic Python code and debug it. So for this particular change, the two-liner actually does the job. So what we would do is just make this change, and the workflow to make a pull request is add the change, commit it, and then push it for review. And we'll actually do this. So let us copy the commands over here, and let's copy the comment line over here too. We will go back to our pandas. Let me clear the screen. And where we need to go is within the series.py file inside core. Now, before we do that, I want to check out a different branch so that I don't end up changing my actual PR request. So let me just call this demo branch. Once we're in the demo branch, I will go to series.py file within the core thing. At line number 3145, you'll just go ahead and add the two lines that we have copied. So if we go to my pull request, you'll see that the lines are added after the import statement over here. So let me just go ahead and add it. Pasting in Vim can be a bit of pain, so you will need to modify the formatting. Okay, once we have done that, we now see if this actually made a difference, right? So we go back to our test.py file and we run this again. And there we have it. So all of these different elements have been replaced by nan, which means that by default, we assume both nan and none objects as just nan. And based on that assumption and convention, this is the expected output that we should be seeing. So once this has been done, what we can do is we go back to our git bash and check on the status. So we have modified pandas core series. We have also modified generate version.py, but we don't want to include that in our commit. So we go to pandas core series.py. Forgot to write an add over here. Then we can make a commit. Now a commit should usually be very descriptive. And in this case, we can just write treated none objects as nan for the command that we have been solving. So I'll just write xyz command because I don't remember the name at this point. And once we have committed it, we can always do a git push and the name of the branch. So we'll have demo branch. If that does not work, just remember that does not work because we don't have a demo branch in the origin. So we'll probably need to do git push origin demo branch. And what this will do is it will create a new branch in your forked repository. So let us go to our pandas fork in our local GitHub account, and you'll see that we have the demo branch where you can just go and compare and pull request and open a pull request. Now remember that this pull request comes with a template, so you will need to fill out all these different things. And once you have filled out these different things, you can go ahead and create a pull request. In this particular video, I'm not going to create a pull request because, as I showed you, I already have a pull request open for this, and this is just for demo purposes. So that is all for today. Make sure that you understand that contributing to repositories like Pandas is a time-consuming process, especially sometimes building it will require you to debug some issues on your own, and internet will always be your friend when it comes to solving errors, especially when it comes to solving Python errors. So do use the internet and also use your detective skills to understand what exactly is going wrong. Your logs will be your friends, your error messages will be your friends, and your stack traces telling you where exactly the error is happening is also very useful when you debug and install such a repository locally. I hope this video added value to your day. And if you do like seeing such videos, do follow, like, and subscribe to my channel. And I'll make sure that I keep such videos coming. And together we can go on this journey of contributing to open source. Thank you and have a great day. Goodbye.